In 1861, as the Civil War rose, the environment for enslaved African Americans changed. Families were separated and uncertainty filled the air. Mainly in the South is where the tension was far worse than anywhere else. Slaves were held to relentless labor and cruel and unfair punishments to support the Confederate cause. During this time period, the North's ultimate goal was not to end slavery, but to preserve the Unions. At this chaotic time period, enslaved workers were given a desperate window of opportunity. Almost all slaves took the chance to claim their liberties. During these times, many African Americans pursued freedoms near Union lines, forcing military leaders to adopt emancipation as a strategic necessity, shaping this conflict. In May 1861, three men, Shepard Mallory, Frank Baker, and James Townsend, helped mark a turning point in history. It didn't happen on a battlefield, but at the gates of Fort Monroe. The three men made a daring escape. They had been forced by the Confederate Army to build a battery of guns intended to sink down Union ships. Knowing they were being used to destroy the very people who might have freed them, they stole a boat and rowed across the James River to seek protection from the Union. When they arrived, they were met by General Benjamin Butler. General Butler was a lawyer by trade and faced a massive dilemma under the Fugitive Slave Act. He was required by law to return these men to their owners. However, Butler came to realize that if he returned the workers, he would essentially give the enemies more workers to help them with the war. Butler came to make a brilliant move as he declared the three men as contraband of war. He argued that if the South considered slaves as property, then the Unions had every right to seize property. To prevent it from helping the rebellion, this was a legal game changer. By using the South's oppressive logic against them, General Butler basically created a loophole for freedom. He denied sending the men back, and for the first time in history, the Union became a shield for those escaping. On May 24, 1861, a Confederate officer arrived at the fort and demanded the men. He asked General Benjamin Butler if he was going to ignore the law. He said the following: "Do you mean to set aside your constitutional obligations?" General Butler knew what he could do, so he stared at the officer in the eye and responded with the following: "I shall hold these men as contraband of war since you claim they are property." The news of the Freedom Union, as it called, spread like wildfire. It traveled through the so-called Grapevine Telegraph, a secret communication network that whispered stories and coded songs. Thousands of enslaved people realized sooner or later that the Union Army that once was a threat was now a shield. By 1862, it wasn't just three men escaping. Massive amounts of enslaved people, families, you name it, abandoned plantations, walking through swamps and dense woods to reach Union lines. This massive moment in history woke up the President of the United States. At the time, President Abraham Lincoln. The South's economy was built on enslaved labor. Every person who fled to a Union camp was a worker lost to the Confederacy and a potential supporter for the Union. By late 1862, President Lincoln realized he could no longer fight to preserve the Union without ending the caused war. On the 1st of January 1863, he issued the Emancipation Proclamation. This was the ultimate reform. It officially had changed the war's purpose from a fight over territory to a drive for human rights and liberties. After the Emancipation Proclamation was signed in 1863, it opened new doors for African Americans. African Americans could finally join the Union Army and be treated with the same amount of respect and treatment as white soldiers. African Americans could also get jobs and get paid, something they could never do before. They worked as teamsters, blacksmiths, cooks, and scouts for the Union Army. For the very first time in their lives, they were paid for their labor. For many, this wasn't just about the money, it was a proof that they were now recognized as independent workers. One letter from John Buston, an enslaved man from Maryland who escaped the Union regiment, wrote this to his wife, Elizabeth. "My dear wife, I am now in safety. I am free from the chains of slavery. I am now in a land of liberty. I am doing well. I am working for the government and getting paid for my labor. I have a good home and a good bed to sleep on. I am as happy as a man can be." The reaction of those who fled to Union lines did more than free individuals. It forced the United States to face its greatest contradiction. From the 3 men at Fort Monroe to over 180,000 soldiers of the United States colored troops. Their actions turned necessity into revolution and history. They proved that freedom is not a gift given by the government, but a right claimed by people through sacrifice. But the story didn't quite end there. The reaction of those who fled and fought in the 1860s became the staple for every civil rights movement that followed. This shows that through bravery and determination, anything is possible.